G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm of course Calfless, and today we're going to be going over the path of champions in Legends of Runeterra. I will be giving you a really quick tip here on how to complete your Dragonmancer pass as quick as you can. So first of all, this is mainly for PvE players, path players, because usually if you're playing PvP, you should be able to get, the quest done really easily. What I mean by quest done really easily, I'm talking about this Enter the Arena quest. It's all going to focus around this specific quest. So yeah, if you're playing PvP, you should be able to progress this really quickly because you'll get, two progression for every match won. Compared to PvE players where you only get one. So yeah, that's the difference here. You should also get your bonus +4 tokens here, if you're playing PvP. But assuming that you're not, assuming you're playing PvE, you're playing Path, this could be of use to you. One thing to note as well, I will not sugarcoat it. This is not a fun way to complete the pass. I will not deny that. This is a really practical, a pragmatic way. This is focused purely on completion. It's not going to focus on whether it's fun to use, whether it will get boring. This is purely for those of you who are prepared to basically just grind it out just to get as many tokens as possible. I'm not really sure what you call this, we'll just call it tokens. Get as many tokens as possible in order to progress the pass. At the very least, if you are a user that have purchased the premium, event pass, you will want to get to the 740 here to get Aurelion Soul. Or if you are a regular user, you at the very least want to get that 730 diamond chest here. So I'm going to show you a really pragmatic, a really practical way, a boring but I promise you effective way. Alright, so how are we going to do it? So we are going to enlist the help of Path of Champions for this one. So let's quickly head into POC. Rightio, we're here in POC. And the champion that we are going to use for this one is actually going to be Jinx. Now I know when you hear the name Jinx, you already know what I'm going for here. I'm going for the auto nuke strategy. But yeah, this is probably the fastest way to do it. Especially if you're like me, you have a couple of jobs, you don't really have time to grind. You need to get this pass completed because you spent money on it. You want to get, the most value out of it back. So this is the fastest way to do it. I'm going to show it to you. Alright, so let's quickly go into Jinx here. And what we're going to do is you need to guarantee that Jinx has two things. First, she needs to be at least at star power 1. Star power 1 is absolutely necessary because that will give you access to what's the worst that could happen 1, the first version of it, where you will be able to deal 1 to the enemy Nexus when you play or discard a card. The second version has the additional deal 1 to a random enemy. You don't need that. All you need is the deal 1 to the enemy Nexus. So that's why you're gonna need at least what's the worst that could happen 1. That's very important. Now what else do you need? In terms of relics, this is probably the most optimal way to do it, but if you don't have any of these relics, it's fine. It's gonna be a little bit slower, but it should still function pretty well. What are the relics I'm talking about here? If you have access to Loose Cannon's payload, this is obtained by completing Garen's Chapter 2. This is going to be an extremely good relic for the Jinx here. Why do I say that? Because whenever you summon, you are able to discard your hand and then create that many Pow-Pows. Now, the Pow-Pow that's being created is probably not too important. The most important thing here is the discard. So you can already tell there is synergy between discard as well as the what's the worst that could happen. This will essentially allow you to deal 1 to the enemy Nexus many times. Therefore, you are able to deal a lot of consistent damage. That's the idea and strategy with this build. So these two, in my opinion, are probably the bare minimum in terms of relics and star powers that you need. Obviously, you don't need to have the Loose Cannon's payload. If you don't want to use the Loose Cannon's payload, you are going to have to rely on playing a lot of cards because it will still deal damage whenever you play cards, but this will obviously be a little bit slower. It still can function, but it will be a little bit slower. I will help you out in that segment as well because, there is a specific adventure that I would recommend to do this so that you're able to play as many cards with ease, and at the same time, you should be able to bring down the enemy Nexus quickly without worrying too much about the game dragging out too long. I'll get to that in a second, but let's go over some other relic pairings here on the Jinx. So assuming that you have your Jinx at level 30, I would probably suggest these two relic sets here. This set you can see here is Grand General's Counterplan and Riptide Battery. This is actually the alternative. I will go with the main build later, but let me talk about the alternative first. Grand General's Counterplan will function something like a pseudo Gale Force. The idea with this one is that you are going to want to summon the Jinx on the first turn. Make sure she survives that first turn. When the next turn rolls around, Counterplan should kick in. You should be able to create a fleeting copy of the Jinx. And because you are going to be creating a fleeting copy of the Jinx, you want to sacrifice the one on the board and summon the one that's being created. That will allow you to trigger the third relic here. And the third relic is going to be Riptide Battery. This is actually a substitute for the Curator's Gatebreaker. Grandjourner's Complan is a substitute for Gale Force. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, coming back to Riptide Battery, Plunder play Cannon Barrage is pretty good because Cannon Barrage will deal 1 to the enemy Nexus if the enemy unit is dead or gone. So the idea with this is that because you are going to be playing the Jinx, when you play or discard a card, deal 1 to the enemy Nexus. When you play a card, you get 1 to the enemy Nexus. You will be able to trigger the Plunder consecutively, and therefore you are going to be able to get Cannon Barrage. So that will still deal damage. Now the problem with this is that Cannon Barrage scales according to cost here. So if you picked up cost reduction in the adventure, you're probably going to get a reduced cost Jinx, and you're going to get, you know, a reduced amount of Cannon Barrages. Now that's not exactly bad, but you're not maximizing the value that you're getting. So that's one build. The other build, which is my recommended build, this is for those of you who have the relics, obviously. You can go with a Gale Force, and I think you can already know where I'm going with this. A Gale Force, and of course, let's see, the Curator's Gatebreaker, if I could find it. There we go, Curator's Gatebreaker. So the idea with this one is that with the Gale Force, we are able to summon the Jinx, essentially cost the discard. Gatebreaker will kick in, it will strike the Nexus, and then when the round ends, the Jinx will come back to hand. You're gonna re-summon it again. Whatever that you created will be discarded yet again. That will deal even more damage, and Gatebreaker will kick in again. So you can see where I'm going with this here. This is basically like a nuclear weapon Jinx, and that's why I say this is probably your best bet, your fastest bet to complete the event pass. Now I'm also going to tell you which adventure to do, and the adventure is probably the easiest adventure in POC. It's the half-star Teemo. Again, like I mentioned, this is probably not a fun way to do it. This is a pragmatic way, a practical way that gets the job done. That's, you know, what you have to bear in mind. This is not a, you know, fun way to complete your event pass. This is all about speed and getting the job done. So in terms of the Teemo here, if we head into the adventure, there will be 4 battles in total. Let me try to count them out for you. One over here, another over here, another somewhere here, and of course the final boss against the Teemo. So there will be 4 battles in total in the adventure. Obviously this is not going to be enough to complete the quest, because the quest requires you to essentially get 6 wins. But it's a guaranteed win. It's an easy win as well, because this is a really easy adventure for both beginners and, you know, of course, veteran players. Beginners shouldn't have too much trouble here. A half-star Teemo, and at the same time, he has a really low health. I believe the health is only 20. So you should be able to bring it down pretty quickly, even though you don't have many of these relics. Now, assuming that you're able to beat the Teemo, you are going to want to cycle through this as many times as you can, because that will give you 10 tokens right now. Previously, before the 10 tokens, it was only 4 tokens. A long-time viewer on the channel, Zinful here, shared me this info on the Discord that the token reward has been increased by the devs from 4 to 10. So completing 6 wins will net you 10 tokens here. If you're able to get at least 2 of this done, like do this twice, 12 wins, possibly even more, because again, this is a really easy adventure. You might just have to cycle through this adventure 3 times to get 12 wins. If you're able to cycle through this 3 times, essentially complete all of them successfully, you should be able to get 20 tokens per day. Now, if I'm not mistaken, for at the time of this recording, there are 11 days remaining in the event pass. So 20 times 11 should be about 220, if I'm not mistaken. Assuming that you are at 520 tokens at the present moment, you should be able to get to Aurelion Sol on the final day. Now, obviously, you are going to want to play with it a little bit. If you are lacking behind, you are going to want to cycle through this adventure more. That way, you're able to progress a little bit faster, get more tokens. But, you know, it's a matter of adjustment to your personal progression here. I'm just giving you the suggestion for the build that I think will give you the fastest result in terms of progression. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to share, a quick little tip here. So if you guys thought this video was helpful, consider leaving a like as well as subscribing to the channel. I really do appreciate that support. But most importantly, it's so that you don't miss future episodes or uploads of Legends of Runeterra or Path of Champions content just like this one. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching as well as joining me. This is Kevlo signing off. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye.